transition into our message, and we're going to do that by way of a video this morning. So go ahead and check this out.
What's so funny? I could just cut my finger off right now. Wild. Gorgeous view from up here, eh? Yeah. Just thinking about the best way to land with breaking the least amount of bones, you know? I feel like feet first. What you looking at? Oh, if that fan fell up there, how many people do you think it would hit? 6, 7? At least 2 would die. My money's on 7. Oh, I just love watching little kids play soccer. It's so cute. Yeah. I wish I could just trip them all at the same time, you know? What? What? What's on your mind? Oh, I'm just thinking about what my life would be like if you died in a fiery car crash inferno tomorrow, and vice versa. Okay.
Here's your plate, man, but don't touch it. It's really hot.
Oh, thanks. I'm gonna touch it.
But I said it's really hot.
I'm gonna touch it and see for myself.
Okay, jeez.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you have intrusive thoughts from time to time. I don't know if you're as sick as me, and sometimes you just have this thought flash before your mind where you're sitting down with someone and you're like, what would happen if I just punched him in the face right now? Is anyone ever, if I'm the only one that's ever had that thought? Oh, we got some others, thank you. I'm not the only one. There are thoughts that you and I have just flooding our mind day in and day out, and we have these things called a social filter that helps us determine whether we should say them or not. And I would bet that we have a great amount more thoughts going through our mind that we do not share than the ones that we actually do because of that. We have thoughts like this that can be quite innocent but are just weird, and we just don't say them out loud because then we just look like idiots. And so we just don't say them. But the reality is that we have them. Every single moment, every interaction that we have, every place that we're in, we just have thoughts happening. And what happens over time is we start to learn which ones can we say out loud. And they're oftentimes connected to something deeper down inside of who we are, and maybe they're harmless, but then also we have other thoughts. We have real thoughts that are actually maybe harmful towards other people. We have real thoughts that start at points of bitterness and resentment and anger and jealousy. We have these root things that then produce thoughts. And then even those, we're trying to determine well, do I actually say how much I hate that person right now? Or do I just put a smile on and act like everything's okay and they're fine? And at the same time, we also have these intrusive things that come up that actually make us act towards things. We have deeper desires that are related to the ways in which we want to be intimate. Sometimes that's through certain means with other people sexually. And if we just acted on every single one of those thoughts, you and I both know the times in which that's happened outside of a context in which it was created, there's destruction. When we actually don't forgive the person that we believe that we can't forgive, things fester and grow and get to a point in which destruction happens. We have ways in which we desire to have more, and then we act on that, and sometimes we cut corners and get to a place so that we can have that more at all costs. So right now, and we could sit here and you could probably think in the last year, if you were to look at the things that didn't go well, the things that did not go well in your life for yourself or for others, how much of that was connected to something else inside of you that eventually came out, that you said, that you acted upon? I would argue it's nearly all of them, if not entirely most of them. There are some external things that happened to you, but the ones in which you were involved in. We have these intrusive thoughts that we're always trying to figure out if we can use them or not, or say them. We have these intrusive desires that we're trying to figure out if we can use or not. And what if we think about this last year, what you could probably notice is that when we let our intrusive thoughts win, we and others lose. When we let our intrusive desires win, we and others lose. It doesn't produce what you hoped it to produce. You exercised on that desire and it gave you fulfillment for a moment, and then within the next day or two, you found yourself still empty, looking for more. Maybe you thought that if I just was my most authentic self in this moment and really told them what I'm thinking, there was something that gave you a moment of feeling like you have control of the situation, but then it just tended to make things worse. And now you're trying to play cleanup even more. What do we do with this? Because I don't know about you, but this is constant. Every day, every week, I wake up with these desires. I wake up with these thoughts. I wake up with these ambitions. I wake up what I think to be good because they're my own thoughts. Why would I admit that I have bad thoughts? Why would I admit the jealousy and the pain points that I'm embarrassed about? Are you aware of the ways in which you just naturally wake up? Are you aware of the ways in which you naturally view other people? Are you aware of the things that drive you in your interactions, from your friends to your family to your workplace to your church community? Because I would offer to you and I this morning, as we press into the continuing our series of sacred resistance, that you and I have something within us that does tend to bring destruction. If we're not aware of it, and if we don't have ways of growing from it and away from it. And what oftentimes happens at the turn of the year is we set goals and ambitions, we turn some things on, and we're going to do this differently. And we start to add to the list of the things that we need to do and to change. But I would offer to you the ways of the life of Jesus and the scriptures would tell us to resist. We'd actually stop doing things. The hardest part is that we're oftentimes called to resist ourselves. In a cultural moment that is telling you and I to just be you and to be more of you, to wear your heart on your sleeve and to don't let anyone tell you that who you are is, not worthy of expressing. I wonder if we actually need to look at it from the other angle and say, what if what the world needs is less of me? Less of my most natural self? What if my relationships around me, from friends to family, might benefit from less of me, but yet more of you in a different way? Because you can't actually become more than just your natural self. You don't have to just respond to every knee-jerk reaction because it's inside of you and it's coming up. I bet you right now the things that have gone best in your life is because you paused and thought before you said something. You maybe called someone close to you and said, hey, can you help me think through this? I'm not sure what to do. I got to make this really big decision. What if I actually sat here and calculated the pros and cons and weighed the impact of this? I bet you those are the moments in which you were more generous. I bet you those are the moments in which you were more kind. I bet you those were the moments in which you actually started to discover a different type of authenticity. One that other people walk away from and say, man, I'm so thankful for them. Oh, that was so helpful when you responded that way. Man, when you reached out in that moment and acted that way when you had every reason to hate me and not do it. I bet you those are the moments in which you felt more than yourself. When you felt like you were actually contributing to something good and right and beautiful. And so what does it look like to do more of that? Because isn't that not what you want from others? As you look around and the closest relationship to you, you just wish that they were a little bit less themselves and more something greater than themselves. And so this idea of these next few days, we kicked off last week, and next Sunday we'll wrap up, is that there's a sacred resistance that you and I can press into. There's something greater than us that we can resist ourselves and turn towards so that we can become greater, so that we can actually be a blessing to other people, so that we can live with more joy and freedom and graciousness. Because I know that you and I have natural desires and thoughts that are oftentimes clinging to control and insecurity and fear and scarcity. And so is there something that we can do to resist that so that we can turn and live in a more beautiful, great way? Because the thing I said last week, I'll say it again next week. When we devote ourselves to ourselves, we eventually lose ourselves. When we just be more of ourselves, when we just do what we simply are desiring in the moment, when we just knee-jerk react to everything, when we follow every little whim that comes up inside of us, we eventually lose ourselves. We just sink further, deeper down into these weird, sometimes nasty desires and thoughts that when we allow the intrusive thoughts to win, we and others lose. I want to offer to you and I this morning, as we talked about fasting last week, and a way of resisting ourselves and becoming something greater is through prayer. Now, when I say prayer, every single person right now is thinking something different, more than likely. And you have a different experience with prayer. You have ways in which you've actually prayed. You have plenty of ways in which you've never prayed. But you understand it to be something in which we are trying to connect with God through words or through thoughts or through feelings. One of the prayers you probably are most familiar with is, Lord, bless this food and bless the hands that made it, right? We pray before dinner. We're about to go on a car trip. Lord, will you help us get there safely? And what's happening in that moment, without really making it more spiritual than it is, and I know we kind of have these thoughts of is God supernatural, and does he interact with us and all these things, especially when there's big things like healing and these miraculous things. What you're doing when you ask him to bless your food, you're asking him to come out of space and time and touch your food so that there's no more germs in it. You're actually asking him to do something. When you're driving, you're asking him to just get around your car, and as you make every turn, he's just blessing it. You're actually asking him to participate in your life. And then there's, of course, the prayers in which you felt hopeless and you had nowhere else to turn. And we cry out, God, if you're real, will you show yourself? How could this be when we're in grief and we're in loss? And so I bet you over time you've prayed in many ways. And some of you have really deeply formed prayer practices. And you're clunking your way through it, because I'll offer to you that we never feel fully like we're praying right or good enough or whatever it is. And I could talk more about that, but I don't know if it'll be most helpful today. But there's a way in which you and I can resist ourselves through prayer. That's what I want to focus on today. That for you and I to become greater than just ourselves, prayer will actually turn the way you experience God, yourself, and other people this year. If you want to experience more God in your life, I want to offer you prayer. If you want to experience more peace in your life, I want to offer you prayer. If you want to actually have an effective life in which other people look to you and say, what is so different about them? Why are they so gracious? Why are they such a blessing? Why are they so generous? I offer to you prayer. If you want to move away from the things that seem to just bring destruction and chaos and you can't get away from, I offer you prayer. There was a moment in time in which the crew that was hanging out with Jesus for his few years on earth, they came to him and they watched his life in a way to where they eventually came to him and said, can you teach us how to pray? Can you help us understand? Which is interesting, because for a culture at that time, they prayed regularly. A good practicing Jew would pray multiple times a day, every single day. They had certain prayers that they would pray over and over and over again. There were a way of shaping them and forming them and relating to God and relating to other people. And for you and I today, sometimes we push back against written prayers because they feel rote at some point. But they had these written prayers that formed them. So for them to come to him and notice something happening in his life as he prayed that they wanted to learn from is very interesting, because they had enough prayers to pray. They really did. And the other piece of it, it is natural, though, for Jesus, who is a teacher, who is a rabbi to these followers of his, rabbis would offer their students prayers, written prayers. And so they're starting to notice something of, well, he's our rabbi. We're following him. Can he help us pray? Can he show us the way in which he seems to have something going on in his life that we don't have? And he says this to them when they ask that question. The first verse here in Matthew. And when you pray, stay there. It's okay. Go back to the first one. That was intentional. It looks like an unfinished sentence. But this is a big sentence. Jesus is talking, assuming that they're praying. Do you pray? Even just right now. Jesus is talking to you and I as if we're praying. Hey, when you pray. Hey, when you're heading into that meeting and you're praying. Hey, when you're alone in the car for a little bit and you're praying. Hey, when you wake up in the morning and you're praying. Before you go to bed at night and you're praying. Hey, you can't seem to forgive and you're praying. He just is assuming that you and I are praying. So first of all, do you pray? Jesus' first remark to us. While you're praying, go ahead. Do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly, I tell you that they have received their reward in full. Similar to last week with fasting, Jesus points out very quickly that even through spirituality, you can still do things that are just for yourself. And does this not connect to our thoughts and our desires that seem to be just for ourselves? Our most natural way of operating through the world is, what is this going to do for me? How is this going to benefit me? Well, I need something here too. What? And it's I, and it's I, and it's I. And he's saying, look, you can pray all you want. Is it still just for you? Because, well, then you're just going to get exactly what you are intended to receive. More of yourself. How's that gone? Is that really what's best for you? You just get more of you? Is that what's best for those around us, that they just get more of us? In my relationship to you here as the pastor of our church, is it best for you that I just give you more of myself? I would offer to you, no, you don't want just more of me. You want more of me that's moving beyond something, that's decentering myself from my own life to become greater than just myself. If you want to grow this year, if you want to experience more, I'd offer to you that you and I are intended to resist ourselves this year. And prayer is a way of doing this. And so he goes on. You're all going to know this here shortly. He says, but when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. Dr. Brian Ross standing in the back, he hates when I do something like this, but that's okay. He said this one time about prayer. Prayer is a chosen experience of being present to our Creator in a spirit of radical openness, asking him to redirect our desires and perspectives so that we will be less like the natural us and a little more like him. Prayer is a way in which you and I move outside of ourselves. Take ourselves out of the situations in which we find ourselves in. Help us actually resist ourselves so that we have the chance of becoming more. Because you and I and me and you and you need you and I to be something greater, not just more of ourselves. Do you pray? And when you pray, what does it look like? I find it interesting that he says, go in a room. I pray in my car, I pray as I walk, I pray as I go into a meeting, I pray while I'm in a meeting. I do those things, but there's also something about getting alone in a very intentional way of communing with God. And so then it goes like this. This then is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us, yes. No. It feels very rote, doesn't it? Even right now, as we say that, I remember this from growing up, and this thing, and my grandma prayed this one, it's on the wall in the living room, and we just do all these things, and we just kind of say it. All right, I can do the Lord's Prayer. Cool, check the box. I'm spiritual. But what if this is actually meant to be more than just saying aloud to check a box of prayer? I'm going to ask us to get the clipboards ready, and if we can get some instrumentals going behind us, I'm just going to give us that time right now. What if you and I experience this in a deeper way every single day of our life? Like a good practicing Jew in that day, praying a prayer like this 2 to 3 times a day every single day. What if you woke up in the morning recognizing that I have a good Father who is beyond every single circumstance in which I find myself and who is greater than I because he is in the heavens? And the heavens have broken into reality to where now he is simply in the atmosphere around me. Every single thing that I do, I am not far from him. He is with me. What if I actually brought him my needs? What if I actually helped him see, like show myself to me so I know where to forgive and where I need forgiveness? What if I asked him to point out the ways in which I'm being tested? What if he had a way in which he could move us away from ourselves and towards him? Could this actually be a deeper experience for you and I? So we're just going to take just a few minutes here. And I'm going to invite up our instrumentalists again on the guitar, because I want us just to reflect for a moment. And this might be new to you, this might be old to you, but what I offer to you is I think that this will be a way of doing it that's new to every single one of us. And that God will simply just meet you and I in it. That we'll slow down long enough to think about these words in which we tend to just recite because we know it. I think one more in the back, Steve. Good. And before we get into this prayer, I just want to draw us to the 21 days of prayer and fasting that we're in as a church. If you weren't here last week, we invited everyone from the 6th to the 26th to participate in what's happening across our city. From Clovis to Fresno, churches actually doing 21 days of prayer and fasting. A way in which we're saying no to more of ourselves and yes to something else. Churches that are a little bit different across the board, coming together and having worship gatherings each night. You can go to midtown.church/fasting. You can see that schedule if you want to pop into a worship service on any of these evenings. Inviting all of us to the University Vineyard on the 21st. But when you go to that site, another resource is for you and I to read scriptures and pray together morning and evening. You can do that through the Lectio 365 app. What I'd really love is if you tried fasting this week, if you changed your prayer rhythm, if you started saying no to something, I'd love to actually hear your experience so far. So if you go to midtown.church/fasting, at the bottom of the paragraph, you can click a button to share your story. We would love to hear that. How's it going so far in this first week? I'm fasting Wednesdays and Fridays. I'm only eating dinner those days. I jumped on a plane on Wednesday, and in the airport I was hungry and I ate food. 3 bites in, I remembered that I was fasting on Wednesday. That's how mine started. It happens. But what if we just share our story? What's happening? So I just want us to just pause. I'll stop talking now. We're just going to do a few minutes here. You can close your eyes. You can write. You can simply reflect. Can someone grab me a clipboard when you get a chance? Thank you. So we want to start. Our Father. Thank you. And if you just want to close your eyes and reflect, think about the idea of God as your loving parent, one who has good and kind intentions towards you. And if you like, imagine him embracing you or smiling at you. Picture his face. Make eye contact. And if you like to write, just write whatever's coming up in you. Thoughts, feelings, images. In heaven, think about the idea that God is all around you. Like oxygen, he surrounds and soaks your body, his spirit abiding within you. As you breathe, imagine that each breath invites God deeper into you, remembering that God loves living here in you. Hallowed be your name. Sit with him in a joyful and grateful posture of worship. Think about the ways and praise him for how his name is set apart, that it is holy. It is something to be revered. It is something that you and I need if we ever have a chance of becoming greater than ourselves. Because it's he who is great. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Man, may we realize the kingdoms of our own that compete with his kingdom. that we want more of His will to play out in our life. We want more of His desires to be ours. What's all good and right and beautiful, breaking into our lives and the ordinary interactions every single day. May it be so. On earth as it is in heaven, bring your peace, Lord. Bring your grace, bring your mercy, bring your healing. Help me to see you. Give us each day our daily bread. May I depend on you. May I trust you for all that I need. May I see the ways in which the idea of more is taking me from the ways in which you're inviting me to depend on you. You will give me what I need. I have plenty. Bring contentment into my life. Forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. God, forgive me the ways in which I live selfishly. Forgive me the ways in which I've acted towards myself and to others and to you. Forgive me the ways in which I choose separation from your love. And may you compel me forward towards forgiveness just as you've offered it to me. Thank you for your gracious and merciful forgiveness. May I share it freely. Who might you need to forgive today? And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Help me become aware of the ways in which I desire what is not of you. Help me become aware of the thoughts and the inclinations and the tendencies to move towards myself, to choose less than what you have to offer me. Cheap fixes. Help silence the voice of shame. For yours is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Added in a little bit later. Everything is His. Everything that's been made. He is the one who is before all things and holds all things together. God, may I not forget that is your kingdom that is having its way here and now. May I be able to see it. It is by your power that I want to live my life. It is by your power that I want to live greater than just myself. Oh, it's all yours. I am yours. And it will go on forever and ever, beyond what I can see, beyond what I know to be true. God, may your presence just meet us now. Move into a time of singing and prayer. We ask for your presence. Why don't we stand?